So you want to do charity work in Africa? Well, I'm going to tell you some things that you need to know before you go in, just so you can avoid getting taken advantage of or possibly even hurting the people that you're trying to help there. My name is Sean. My wife and I have been running a charitable organization that primarily works with orphans in Kenya, also families there, for the past 7 years. We started in 2019 and went right through COVID and have gone there 6 times now, I think, visiting. And I'm going to just give you some lessons learned over these years about cultural issues. And this doesn't apply just to Kenya, it also applies to other African nations especially, but it could even be non-African nations. It really applies to most third world countries that are relatively impoverished and the types of things you see happen there. Most people go into charity work with their heart in the right place. You know, it's like, I want to help people, and you might want to help in particular ways. Like maybe you want to build homes, or maybe you want to help get people medical care that they need if they're, you know, to avoid diseases. And, you know, you might want to be doing something like getting children in school, whatever it is. What you're going to find is that you need to learn the local culture, because the culture is not going to be clear to you as, for example, an American or a European or a Canadian, or it's going to be a very different culture. Your first world country culture is totally different than theirs. And you're also even years into a relationship with that country and that culture and the people you're helping. It's going to take a while for you to really get to know the culture and have people reveal to you the truth of what's really going on, because a lot of times that truth is pretty ugly. Our society is pretty ugly too. Most people never admit it, but their form of ugliness in their culture tends to be a little bit more apparent and on the surface, like the corruption, because people aren't as good as hiding it. A lot of times you don't want to try to hide it. But in order to understand the norms of the culture and how to help and how to hurt, it just takes time. So for example, let me give you some concrete examples. When you're sending money, you need to make sure that you send the money to the person that you are trying to help and not to one of their relatives, if at all possible. This could be very difficult with a younger child, but you need to make sure whoever you're sending to trusts the money, because people will often dip their hand in the cookie jar. I had one uncle that I sent money to for the niece, and let's just say that I sent X amount of money to them for, it was a school-related expenses, and I would say probably 40% of the money actually got to her. I guess it could have been worse. Needless to say, I don't send money to that uncle anymore. So people are, and I'm not here judging these guys because I know they're impoverished and they can't help themselves in many cases. I'm not excusing it either, but you have to be smart. You have to understand that temptation can just be too great for these people. So you need to try to pay vendors directly. All right, whether you're doing individual charity work or you're doing it through an organization, either of your own or somebody else's. But if you are doing that, you have to make sure that you pay the vendors directly. But you got to vet the vendors, because a lot of times the vendors are total crooks and will just put their hand in the cookie jar, take out of the till, just overcharge you. One of the things that you'll see happen is that the minute that they get wind that the money for whatever it is, school fees, medical, food, but that money, the funding is coming not from the family in the country, like the locals that you're helping, but rather some foreign organization, they will up the price. And they will, and I say up the price, I don't mean like double, like sometimes it'll be 5 times the price. And so that means if you don't know, you need to know what things cost, what the norms are for because otherwise you can't really understand. So you do need to understand that. But you also need to make sure that the people who you are helping are not revealing to the vendors accidentally, for example, that they're getting free or whatever, because the prices are going to go up. They need to act like they're paying for it themselves. So you have to coach people, unfortunately, because otherwise the corruption will kick in. And I have seen this so many times. And one of the things you'll know, one of the ways you'll know is a lot of times the numbers are very even. Like instead of 870 Kenyan shillings, it'll be 5,000, or it'll be 10,000, 25,000. It'll be an even number, which in a medical situation, that's a bit fishy. But I've seen that so many times. But moreover, and more importantly, what you'll see is that the numbers are very high, like numbers that that family could never have afforded. That would have taken them the next 20 years to pay it off, or 10 years to pay it off. And they're acting like it's normal. And that's because they know that you're back there funding it. I don't ever hear anybody talk about this stuff. That's why I'm here talking about it, because these are the things you need to know. If you just go in like guns blazing into a new culture, you're gonna find out the hard way about these things. There's also a responsibility to understand the effect that your money is having on that culture and the people around the people you're helping, whether it's, again, families or orphans, or students going to school, or whatever it is. It's an unfortunate side effect is you're going to breed envy, because everybody needs help. A lot of people need help. And if you're working like around a family, there's going to be uncles and nephews and cousins and nieces and whatever that need assistance. And they want to go to school, or they want to, whatever, buy a motorbike, or feed their family, whatever it is. So, you just be aware that bringing the money in has an effect on the culture of the family that you're helping, the local economy, that neighbor, the village, whatever it is. It can have an effect. That's not a reason not to do it. I'm just saying, keep your eyes open and be aware of this, and operate from a place of understanding that, rather than being like not caring or being completely blithely ignorant to it. But listen, like, none of this is said to discourage anybody from helping. There's so much good you can do with the money you spend on just like a lunch or Starbucks coffee. It's true. We've all heard this. It's true. It's you can change lives, and it's good work. But you do need to be another thing you need to do is find out people in that local economy, that village, that city, whatever, that you can trust. That's the hardest thing, is finding people you can trust. Because when you find one person you can trust, you could hire them as an administrator for a small fee even, to delegate the money out, to make sure to locally negotiate with vendors as a local, to just be boots on the ground with regards to a kid going to school and getting the help they need, or a hospital, whatever it is. Because unless you're going to be there all the time to do that, even then, you didn't grow up in the culture, you don't live in the village probably, so there's only so much you can do. So finding a helper, a friend in that area, and you can work with local churches there. If you have an organization, you probably will have contacts in that culture, but you need to find somebody that can act as sort of a delegate person. And every successful organization that I know or have worked with has had somebody like that. In our cases, it's been a woman each time. Not saying it couldn't be a man, but it just happened to have been. There was one woman named Jennifer, and then we have a friend named Kate, and they're golden. Like, despite their own poverty and everything, they just so pure, and just never make wow, just really stand by the kids in these cases. These were both children's homes where they just made sure that the kids were taken care of, and never ever took anything for themselves that wasn't meant for them. People like that, they're worth their weight in gold. And you can find somebody like that, hold on to them, take care of them, because they are going to be a linchpin in your ability to help in your charitable work. If you want to know more about our organization, it's lovinghomeministries.org. It talks about our mission in Kenya primarily. We also do some feeding of the homeless in France and in the United States and California, but our primary mission is in Kenya. You can find out a little bit more about what we do there. And it's lovinghomeministries.org, and you can see the link in the description. If you ever want to come to Kenya with us on a mission, we'll be going again this December 2026, possibly late November, probably early December. Always welcome. Lots of need for help. We're, like all charity organizations, we are underfunded and understaffed.